I had it all planned out, an epic Halloween glamping trip in the Florida Keys. I'd rented an RV, packed it with enough snacks, costumes, and horror movies to last a week, and mapped out a few prime campsites. It was supposed to be a perfect blend of adventure and relaxation. But if I'd known what would happen, I would have never gone. After driving down from Miami, I was ready to pull into the first campground just before sunset, but when I arrived, a sunburned guy with a clipboard gave me a shake of his head. "Full up," he said, shrugging like he hadn't just shattered my plans. "This time of year, you gotta book months in advance." I tried a second place down the road, then a third. Each one was the same story. No room, full up, try somewhere else. The sun was dipping fast, casting long, strange shadows across the landscape, making the palms look like they were reaching out, twisting toward me. By the time I reached the fifth site, I was more than frustrated. I was spooked. But when I pulled up, there was no one there. Just a set of rusted gates with a faded sign that read, "The Last Stop." "Okay, that's a little creepy," I muttered, but I was desperate. The gates creaked open as I nudged them with the RV, and I drove through, trying not to think about how dark it was getting. The site was empty. No other RVs, no lights, not even a reception area. Just a wide, dark patch of gravel surrounded by scraggly trees and swamps. I parked, killed the engine, and sat there, trying to shake the feeling that something was off. I figured I'd set up, make myself some dinner, and get a movie going. Maybe the solitude would be refreshing. But as I looked around, I realized something was wrong. There were no sounds, no crickets, no birds, no wind, just silence, thick as the humid air that clung to my skin. I stepped out to stretch, and a chill ran down my spine. The heat was stifling, but I felt cold. As I was setting up, I thought I saw something move in the tree line. I told myself it was just a trick of the shadows. I even laughed, trying to shake it off. "Just me and my imagination," I muttered, hoping the sound of my own voice would snap me out of it. Then in the distance, I noticed a faint glow. At first, I thought it was headlights, but it stayed in one place, flickering. It was a soft amber light, barely cutting through the dark. Maybe another camper had shown up after all, and that thought gave me a bit of relief. I walked toward the light, hoping to find someone who could tell me more about this place, or at least give me a sense of normalcy. But as I got closer, I realized something strange. It wasn't a campfire, lantern, or flashlight. The light seemed to hover, shifting slightly but never flickering out. "Hello?" I called out. My voice felt swallowed by the heavy air, like the night didn't want anyone to hear me. The light moved, just a few feet to the left. I followed, thinking I could find the source, maybe even a fellow camper. But every time I got close, it moved again, just out of reach. A cold sweat broke over me, and I stopped in my tracks. The rational part of me screamed to go back to the RV, to lock myself inside, but there was something oddly hypnotic about the light. I took a few more steps, watching it dance through the trees just far enough ahead to be out of reach, until I looked back and realized I'd lost sight of the RV completely. I spun around, the trees now forming an unfamiliar web around me, each one like a dark figure watching, waiting. Panic set in. The light blinked out. I was alone. "Okay, enough of this," I whispered, turning back, trying to retrace my steps. But nothing looked the same. Every turn I took led me further into a twisting, unrecognizable part of the forest. I had the eerie sense that I was no longer in the campsite at all. Just as I started to lose hope, I saw it, a familiar glint of silver in the moonlight. My RV. Relief flooded over me, and I ran toward it, desperate to lock myself inside. But when I got there, something stopped me. The engine was running, the headlights were on, but I hadn't left it that way. I stepped back, scanning the area, half expecting someone to jump out. But the RV was empty. I climbed in, shut the door, and locked it. I didn't even care how the lights had turned on or who might have been there. I just wanted to be safe. Taking a deep breath, I settled into the driver's seat, hoping I could just leave, find another place, any other place. But as I looked at the GPS, my stomach dropped. The route was gone, and in its place were coordinates I didn't recognize, leading nowhere. A chill went down my spine as I saw the screen flicker. The coordinates kept changing, flashing up different names, each one more cryptic. The Lost Lagoon, the Drowned Campground, the Last Stop. It was like the RV had a mind of its own, guiding me somewhere I didn't want to go. In desperation, I threw it into gear and drove, not caring where as long as I got away. But after a few miles, I saw it. A glowing sign flickering in the dark, the last stop. I had just come from there. It couldn't be right. I kept driving, but no matter which way I turned, the sign reappeared, like it was calling me back. I'm still here now, stuck in a never-ending loop, every road leading back to the last stop. My phone has no signal, and the gas is somehow still full, even after hours of driving. The light in the forest appears every now and then, flickering just out of reach. I've tried to follow it, hoping it'll lead me out, but it only brings me back to the same empty patch of gravel, surrounded by trees and silence. So, if you ever find yourself glamping in the Florida Keys and you see a place called The Last Stop, do yourself a favor, keep driving. Because once you enter, it may never let you leave.